So Bray Wyatt in WWE was honestly one of the greatest characters I've ever seen. But in particular his first year, because he came into it with Eric Rowan and Luke Harper in, I believe it was the summer of 2013. And I think a good thing that they did with him straight away was not put him right in the world title scene or in world title storylines. They just had him feud with Kane. So if you bear in mind a few months earlier the Shield debuted, and not that this was a bad thing, because the Shield's introduction was brilliant and everything about the Shield for the first year was great, but they were immediately involved in world title storylines. Not challenging for the title, but they were involved in that whole scene because they cost Ryback the title, they were helping CM Punk and everything. Whereas Bray was brought in not with as much fanfare. It wasn't like, right, he is the future, he is going to be the guy who costs people world titles. He was just brought in to kind of just be this mysterious figure, this mysterious swamp leader who they were showing him in vignettes with Rowan and Harper, and at the time you're just thinking there is nothing like this in WWE. Like I'd never seen anything like it before, and I was in my early 20s watching it, thinking this is so cool. Like Bray Wyatt is the most captivating character on anything, on any TV series, any television show, any movies I've seen recently. Bray is the one when he's on TV that you're thinking, what is he going to do next? Because he was believable, and there wasn't that much footage of him speaking out of character at that point. I know he'd been on like the NXT sort of game show thing in the past when he was Husky Harris, but when he was Bray Wyatt, I don't know. There wasn't much on YouTube and stuff. I remember watching one interview with him and thinking, oh my god, I've actually found an interview with Bray Wyatt speaking out of character, and he just seemed so cool. But there wasn't much. He didn't say a lot about himself, about the character, about wrestling in general. So when you're watching the character on TV, it's like watching a film when you don't even know who the actor is, and you believe everything the actor does in the film because you don't know much about them. And that's what Bray Wyatt was in a time when everyone started doing podcasts and interviews. Bray was the cool one. Who I even remember when he was like shown backstage on Total Divas, or that they were told he wasn't allowed to be on camera on Total Divas because he wanted to protect his character, or maybe WWE wanted him to protect his character. But I think it was the Bella twins said if they ever didn't want to be filmed on Total Divas, they'd go and find Bray backstage so that they could get out of being filmed because they knew they wouldn't film Bray. So anyway, he feuded with Kane as soon as he came into it, and it was just a cool look. Bray Wyatt with the Wyatt family, Harper and Rowan, and I think also at the time it was like an excitement about what he's going to go on to become. So there's because you get that a lot with some people. It's like, right, currently their character is amazing, and we're excited about what's going to come next. Like they could go on to become a five-time world champion, a WrestleMania main eventer, and I think with Bray, it was what he's doing right now is like middle level because as I said, he wasn't in the main events, but what he could go on to become is so exciting that we want to see the journey of what happens here. So as 2013 went on, he beat Kane in that feud, and then feuds with Daniel Bryan, which was amazing. Like the feud that Bray and Daniel Bryan had was so much fun. As a fan in that time, it was honestly the best thing on WWE TV because I think the Wyatt family, Harper and Rowan, I think faced CM Punk and Daniel Bryan at Survivor Series 2013 because Bryan and Punk were known as the Best and the Beard, the short-lived tag team name. And I think Punk and Bryan won that match, but then the next month it turned into a feud between Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan, where all three Wyatt family members beat Bryan at TLC 2013. But this is the moment that is so cool in wrestling, like one of my favorite moments of all time, where Daniel Bryan, who at this point fans wanted him to be the world champion because the Yes movement was happening and the Authority were against Daniel Bryan, and he was suddenly taken away from the Authority storyline to feud with the Wyatts, but fans still wanted Bryan to be back in the world title picture. So as he's feuding with Bray Wyatt basically brainwashes Daniel Bryan and forces him to become a Wyatt family member. It wasn't like the Daniel Bryan character was just, oh yeah, he's just with the Wyatts. A little bit like, I'm not saying this was bad in any way, but when Randy Orton was with the Wyatts years later, I actually enjoyed that whole story. But he was still just Randy Orton with the Wyatts. But with Daniel Bryan, he was actually brainwashed. Like, his character was like bloody Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, if anyone's ever seen that, where he was out of it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So Daniel Bryan wakes up to this on an episode of Raw and gets back to his normal self inside a steel cage when he is leading the crowd in these yes chants and takes off the Wyatt gear that he was wearing and just attacks Bray Wyatt and ends up on top of a steel cage, and he's leading the crowd in these yes chants. And I think Bryan actually had a concussion at the time. So, yeah, that was another thing that I didn't realise at the time, but I remember him saying it later, that I think when he was on top of a steel cage doing the whole yes chants, he basically was out of it and didn't know what was happening. But it was one of the most iconic moments of the whole yes movement and Daniel Bryan's character, that moment. And then they had a match at the Royal Rumble, which was incredible. Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt, and Bray won. And at the time, again, I'd been watching wrestling for 2 years at that point, and that was probably easily one of the top 5 matches I'd seen in those 2 years. Bray Wyatt winning against Daniel Bryan. So it's so exciting watching all this and thinking, what is Bray Wyatt going to do next? So he feuds with John Cena, and up until WrestleMania 30, I was thinking, this is the best booking I've seen of a character in, like, when I watched wrestling as a kid and as an adult, because, as I keep on referring back to, because he's at this middle level and he's not been thrown in fans' faces, it's exciting because it's like, okay, what we're watching now is cool, but what we could see in the future is he could be amazing. Like, this guy, and especially because he was being protected a little bit, because he would be sat at ringside in his rocking chair. Harper and Rowan would be having tag matches, and we're just watching Bray, the coolest character in WWE friggin' history, honestly. Him sat in that rocking chair with a Hawaiian shirt, just kind of watching the Wyatts beat everybody up, was so cool. And going into WrestleMania, I mean, it was obvious, like, Bray's got to win. He's got to beat Cena. And I remember, because I went to WrestleMania 30, the only time I've ever been outside of England, which I say in every video whenever I talk about WrestleMania and 2014, but if anyone's not heard me say that before, I was at WrestleMania 30, and there was people walking down the street dressed as Bray Wyatt, with a Hawaiian shirt, with the hat. I even saw this guy with a lantern walking down the street in New Orleans, with the whole Bray Wyatt thing. So that is how cool Bray Wyatt was. But of course, WrestleMania comes around. He's got Harper and Rowan at ringside, but he still loses against John Cena. And it's so kind of disappointing, really, when you look at it and think, okay, in wrestling, a lot of the time, the outcome doesn't matter. But this, it mattered. And it's actually rare, when you look at a wrestling storyline, that the winner even matters. Because it just doesn't. It's all about enjoying the show. But I think when it gets to WrestleMania, that is the time when the outcome matters more than anything. And even after WrestleMania, after he lost to John Cena, he beat John Cena at I think it was Extreme Rules in the steel cage match. But I do think Cena won another match after that, and he ultimately won the rivalry. But it's one of those things at WrestleMania, like, look at 2013, Fandango and Chris Jericho feuded. And you'd think, okay, who won that feud? So anyone watching now, you straight away you might think, well, Fandango, because he beat Jericho at WrestleMania. But actually, Jericho won the feud overall, because he beat Fandango in a rematch, and I think they fought again after, and Jericho won again. So Jericho won the feud, but Fandango won the big one. And that's the thing, like, when Bray Wyatt lost to John Cena, it's like, it doesn't matter what happens now, he's lost. Like, it's like a football team, Champions League final, and then a few months later they win the first 6 group games of the next season. Well, it doesn't really matter, because they still lost for Champions League final. So Bray Wyatt lost at WrestleMania 30, and after that, okay, he beat John Cena, but he didn't really, because he lost at WrestleMania. And I think the first year of Bray Wyatt was so much fun, but they could have, if he did beat Cena, then I think it would have been a case of, right, get him in the world title picture. And the really annoying thing about it is, let's say Bray did beat Cena. Well, Daniel Bryan had to relinquish the World Heavyweight Championship after winning it at WrestleMania like a month later because of injuries. And then the vacant title, Cena won it. It's like Bray, honestly, I honestly think he would have won. Because if he beats Cena and then he goes on to there's this vacant title, I think it would have been Bray's. But his character was, I'm not going to be outlandish and say, oh, his character was ruined at WrestleMania 30, because it wasn't. But it was a massive setback that was unnecessary when he was just climbing to get to that next level, to get to the main event scene consistently. It's like, nah, let's just pull him back. Let's put him back into the middle. No, not the mid card, but let's just drop him down a level or two. So yeah, they are my reflections on Bray Wyatt's first year in WWE.